Once, there was a leader of a village who had 3 sons, each of which possessed a special talent. The oldest was skilled in his ability to raise and care for olive trees. The middle son was a shepherd, and when the sheep got sick, he possessed special abilities to make sheep well. And the third, the youngest son, was a great dancer. And when there was a string of bad luck in the family or in the village, if anyone needed some cheer added to their lives, he would dance and bring them all joy. One day, the leader of the tribe told his sons that he had to go on a long journey. And they were instructed, "My sons, the people of the village will be depending upon you to help them. Each one of you has a special gift. So while I am gone, I expect you. I hope that you will use your gifts wisely and well. So upon my return, I will find our village more happy and prosperous than it is today." And the leader of the village embraced his sons and left on the journey. For a few months, things went quite well in the village. But then came a brutal winter with snow and winds and assorted problems. The buds on the olive trees shrank and cracked, and therefore it would be a long time before those trees would recover. And because of the extremely long winter, the village ran out of firewood. So the people began to cut down the branches from the trees, and in the process stripped the orchard bare. Even though the first son did not want the trees cut down, he knew that his neighbors needed heat to survive. And so he began to help them make firewood from the olive trees. Then the snows came, and it made it impossible for traders to come up the river and navigate the mountain passes. So the villagers said, "Let us kill the sheep and eat them, so that we will not starve to death." At first, the second son refused, but eventually gave in to his neighbor's demands. He said, "What good will it do to spare the sheep, only to have my neighbors perish?" In this way, the villagers had just enough firewood for their fires and food for their tables. But the horrible long winter had broken the villagers' spirits. They began to think that things were really much worse than they were, and they began to lose hope. This belief was so strong that family by family, they began to move out of the village in search of a more hospitable place to live. As spring came, the icy grip of winter began to loosen, and at the same time, the leader of the village returned to find smoke only rising from one chimney, his home. "What has happened? And what have you done?" he asked when he reached his home. "What's happened to all of the villagers?" "Oh, Father, forgive me," said the eldest son. "The people were freezing, and they begged me to cut down the olive trees, so I did. I gave away my talent. I'm no longer fit to be an orchard keeper." "Don't be angry, Father," said the second son. "The sheep would have frozen to death anyway, and the people were starving. Thus, we slaughtered the sheep." The father understood and said, "Don't be ashamed, my sons. You did the very best you could. You acted rightly and compassionately. You used your talents wisely, trying to save the people. But tell me, what has become of our village? Where are all of our neighbors?" Then the two older brothers fixed their eyes on the younger brother, who said, "Welcome home, Father. It's been a very difficult winter. There was little to eat. There was little firewood for heat. I thought that it would be insensitive and improper to dance during such suffering. Besides, I needed to conserve my strength so that I could dance for you when you came home." "Then dance, my son," the leader said, "for the village is empty, and so too is my heart. Fill us with joy and hope and courage once again. Yes, please dance." But as the third son made ready to dance, he grimaced and fell down. His legs were so stiff and sore from sitting that they were not strong enough to be used for dancing. Father was so sad he could not even be angry. He simply said to his youngest son, "Ours was a strong village that could have survived for the want of fuel and food, but it could never survive without hope and joy. Because you failed to use your talent wisely and well, our neighbors gave up what little hope they had. So now what? Our village is deserted and you are crippled." It's a powerful story that demonstrates what happens when we fail to use our gifts and talents wisely and abundantly as God equips each one of us to do. In the gospel text from John today, Jesus proclaims in this beautiful prayer to God and reviews, one might say, the mission that God sent him to fulfill. In this prayer and in this place in John's gospel, Jesus knows that his time on earth is very short. So he prays to God and expresses how he has done his very best to complete the work that he was sent to accomplish. Jesus acknowledges that he was given authority over all people to bring them the message of hope and to reveal the one true God. Jesus says, "I have made your name known to those whom you gave me in the world. They were yours. You gave them to me, and they have kept your word." And because he knows his time is short, Jesus petitions the Almighty to protect them so that they will be at one with Christ, as Christ is one with the Almighty. From his personal experience, Jesus knew the world would be a very challenging place, and he asks the Almighty to protect those for whom he knows he will die. And we all know that Jesus' prayer was answered. Next week, we will celebrate the Feast of Pentecost. So there's no doubt for any of us that Jesus did his work and shared his gifts abundantly and wisely. He possessed many great talents to conduct ministry. He was one of the greatest teachers in all history. Every work and action of Jesus was an opportunity to teach. He never once shied away from his call. He taught his disciples privately on many occasions. And we recall how Jesus taught them that it is better to serve than to be served, that humility is more important than power, and that there was an absolute need to be selfless, even to empty oneself and life for others in order to experience fullness and abundance. Jesus taught publicly through sometimes a veiled message of the parables, but also more directly in the Sermon on the Mount. He used his abilities to effect miraculous cures of the body, mind, and spirit as demonstrations of the fullness of God's love for people. Jesus never missed an opportunity to assist another, especially those who demonstrated faith. It was the woman with the hemorrhage who believed that all she needed to do was reach out and touch the hem of Jesus' robe, and she would be healed. Her confidence was rewarded with Jesus' words, "Take heart, my daughter, your faith has made you well." In another instance, Jesus cured the Roman centurion servant because of his trust. "Truly I tell you," Jesus said, in no one in Israel have I found such faith." Jesus cured paralytics, opened the eyes of the blind, cast out evil spirits from the possessed. He demonstrated compassion in raising the son of the widow of Nain, as well as his good friend Lazarus. Jesus demonstrated a great depth of compassion with forgiveness, dismissing the sin of an adulterous woman, and even forgiving Peter after he had denied Jesus 3 times. Jesus, like the 2 elder sons in the story, used his talents well and wisely. In this congregation, we've all experienced this. We've been given many talents and gifts to be used for the construction of God's kingdom. And we are set together in this community to reach out beyond these walls, individually and collectively, uniquely, to wisely and fully use the many wonderful gifts we have been given. We have the gifts of experience and wisdom for teaching, speaking, and writing. We were told as children, "Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt us." And that may have sounded good at the time, but the adage, while helpful to children, is not so true for adults. Words are very important, both words that are spoken and words that are written. We must be thoughtful in the way that we use those words in the building of the kingdom. If we are to review our lives, as Jesus does in this prayer in John's Gospel, will we be able to honestly say that we have used God's gifts wisely and well for the benefit of all? Or have we been more like the younger son who waited, who held on to his gift, and in the process, his gift collected dust and lost its importance and significance? It's not always easy to use our gifts well and wisely for the benefit of all. There are times that we don't even know where to start, or even what gifts are the most important in a given situation. And when that happens, we have the resources and the experience of the whole community of faith. And we need to rely on the Christian community to assist, lead, and if necessary, challenge us to use our gifts well and wisely as we daily, stone by stone, act of compassion upon act of compassion, construct God's kingdom all around us. Many of us know from personal experience that sometimes utilizing our gifts for the building of God's kingdom will bring ridicule and even rejection. That shouldn't really be a surprise to any of us. Jesus told us that we would have that experience. But He also reminded us that we must take courage, for He has overcome all the evil that we will face. We can also take solace in the words of the writer of the pastoral epistles. If we have died with Him, we will also live with Him. If we endure, we will also reign with Him. If we deny Him, He will deny us. If we are faithless, He remains faithful, for He cannot deny Himself. We made it through the journey of Lent. We've celebrated Easter together, and that season is rapidly drawing to a close. Next week, we celebrate Pentecost, which beckons us today to take stock of our lives and ask a challenging question. Have I done my best to complete work that God has given to me? Or is there much more that needs to be done? Brothers and sisters, I want us to have the courage to ask that question. Let us discover what needs to be done as we prepare for the day-by-day calling of God's coming and eternal life, which is God's promise for all who believe. Thanks be to God. Amen.